Hey, this is James from survivalpunk.com. Having audio difficulties this morning, but let's see how it goes, okay? So I have to clean out the pod studio. It's gotten full of clothes and junk and ants. So I'm recording in the car. Finding a place to mount the speaker onto is a pain in the ass. But whatever. We're here, and let's do an episode. Today's show is about how to get started prepping. I know a lot of you longtime listeners, you know this. I'm preaching to the choir here. Some of us may have gotten lax. Like I said, we had the episode on lessons learned from the pandemic. Not all of us. It's easy to slack off on your preps. Like, we're preppers, but you know, you get burned out. Prepper burnout is a real thing. You don't prep as hard. These things happen. You assess your situation. You realize, oh, I'm not as prepared as I could have been. So it's good to revisit the basics in these times. And for those of you that are not long-term listeners, that have not been preppers for years, this pandemic may have scared you, may have woken you up to realize that things could happen. They do, obviously. And you might want to be a little prepared. As always, on Survival Punk Podcast, we do things rationally. We've had some conspiracy episodes, but they're fun. They're a laugh. It's fun to go down those rabbit holes on occasion. So, normally we take a very rational approach, i.e., what's the most likely thing to happen? Loss of a job. So you prepare for that. And if you think about it, prepping should only be a benefit. Prepping should never be a hindrance to your everyday life. Having some extra food stored might not need to run to the store as much. Having some toilet paper stored might not need to run to the store. Might be able to have toilet paper when there is no toilet paper to be had. For that dumbness that happened. Prepping should... another famous podcaster, like, say, for when times get rough, or even if they don't. Jack Spirko, Survival Podcast. How's that motherfucker put out a show every day? I envy him. And if it was a full-time job, then I would do that. But it is not a full-time job. I do this for love. I'm certainly not making fat dough off the podcast. It's because I like doing it. I like sharing the information that I've learned, and it's fun. So yeah, prepping should only be good. So let's sort of get into the really rudimentary basics for the people that have realized things can go south. They're looking for survival podcasts to listen to sort of get them up to speed. I recently learned that there's at least one less podcast in the pond. I haven't looked to see how many more have started up, but there's not a lot of survival podcasts out there, and our turnover rate is pretty high. Jack's been in the game the longest, and he's still doing it religiously day in and day out. I put out an episode, not as much as I should. Surprise, this episode's only like 2 weeks after the last episode, so I am trying to get better. In the rabbit hole, just found out, quit a year ago. Wow. And recently, so I've really been trying, get sucked back into the prepper world hard. Like, not that I ever really lost interest, but having the baby, getting married, it was hard to find times for things. I've still been prepping, but I've been prepping as hard as I could. I just, I haven't been podcasting as much as I should. whatever, recent events have drawn me back in. I got to thinking about a podcast I used to listen to that I knew was gone. I knew it was the Chipmunk Family Survival Podcast. He was fairly entertaining. So there's that. And I was like, oh, that's another one gone. But I got to think about him. I was like, man, can I dig up his old episodes? And I usually, oddly enough, I try to archive any appearance I've been on another podcast. Not always, but I generally try to. After doing it and episodes have been lost to the ether, I try to back up my own episodes so they're at least out there forever. Weird tangent. But anyway, how to get started prepping. First, decide to prep. When you make that decision, when you enter that rabbit hole, that's the first step to being a prepper. You have to decide, shit can go south. I might want to be prepared. You take that first step, that you agree to initiate that responsibility, that you're responsible for your food safety and survival. You're responsible for your survival. You take a part of that away from not being in your hands. Most people, they put all that faith in the government, which is why statism is a religion. But we will not make this episode political whatsoever. I don't care who you're voting for. I don't care if you're voting. We may have discussions about that on another episode. How to get started prepping is politically indifferent. It doesn't matter. If you are the biggest leftist in the universe and you realize, hey, if you want to defund the police, you have to take responsibility for your own security. There you go. If you're the biggest, Republican ever, you want small government, you should probably start by divesting yourself from those things. You want smaller government, stop relying on them to do things. And if you're a libertarian, I don't need to tell you any of this. So you decide to prep. You realize things can go wrong, and you're like, hey, I should probably get into prepping. You might start watching ridiculous shows on Netflix like Doomsday Preppers. God, I hope you don't. I've seen a few episodes. Man, it's terrible. And it makes us look like wackadoodles. And we get blamed for a lot of shit that has nothing to do with us. All the panic buying that happened not that long ago, all the toilet paper shortage, that wasn't preppers. We already had our toilet paper. If we were buying toilet paper, it was just supplemental. We weren't in there loading up our shopping carts. We were getting a roll here and a roll there. I didn't buy toilet paper really for like 2 months during that toilet paper shortage. I don't have a giant stockpile of toilet paper, but I had some, and I didn't need to go ransack the shelves. So you've decided to prep. You want to do it smartly, not retardedly, and either on iTunes or Stitcher or something, you've come across the Survival Punk podcast, and you're like, hey, this guy James has an episode on how to get started prepping. I want to get started prepping. How do I do that? This isn't going to be the most in-depth episode. It's not going to break apart all the things. It's going to be an overview. It'll get you started. I have close to 300 episodes. I have hundreds of articles. There are other ones. Start there, go back, listen to some of those old episodes. You listen to those old episodes, you might be thinking, man, James used to have a co-host, Couch Potato Mike. What happened to him? He's still around. We just haven't had a chance to bang out an episode in a long time. I started doing these solo episodes because it's easier to find time by myself. Like right now, Mike is at work, so there's that. I've had, you know what? I've had people asking, like, if I get him back on, maybe I'll try to bring him back on. I think I'm getting real close to episode 300. And when I hit 300, not if I hit 300, I will definitely bring him on for a special episode. How about that? If you like that idea, drop me an email, james@survivalpunk.com. Leave me a message in the show notes, whatever. So yeah, let's tackle. As soon as you get into prepping survivalism, you first come across something called the rule of threes. There's a reason you come across it pretty early on. There's a reason I'm going to tell it to you early on in this episode. I mean, early-ish, because I've been rambling. The rule of threes. So the rule of threes goes, basically, you can survive 3 seconds without security, 3 minutes without breathable air. Unconsciousness generally occurs in icy water. So if you're drowning, 3 minutes is about the upper limit. And if you've ever went in the water and tried to hold your breath, chances are you're not making it 3 minutes. There are the record is 15 minutes or something, which is impressive. Or at least it was last time I looked, somewhere around there. I'm not real sure. Could be a lot more. Could be 20 damn minutes. I don't know. You can survive 3 hours in a harsh environment, extreme heat, or cold, without shelter, basically. You can survive 3 days without drinkable water. 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. These are all generalities. They're not always exact. Some people go longer or shorter. There's always outliers. This is, and it's reduced to threes to basically make it, a good acronym. People like good rule of threes instead of rule of three-ish. Not as cool. So sort of go through it. 3 minutes without security. If someone's intent is to murder you and you are completely unprotected, you're dead in about 3 seconds. Pull the trigger, bam, you're dead. It's over. 3 minutes without breathable air. What can you do about that? Say you're on the water, you might want to have a life jacket. 3 minutes in a harsh environment without shelter. Learning to build a shelter can help you out. Having the right gear can help you out. Dressing appropriately can help you out. When you get into survival, you'll see the term cotton kills thrown around pretty well. And the meaning is, if you're wearing a bunch of cotton clothes and you fall in icy water, the cotton's going to do nothing to help you. It will only hinder you. It will hold in the cold. It will fuck you up. Cotton in a hot environment is great. Here in the South, in the middle of summer, we're having 90-degree days. It's getting pretty damn warm out here right now. Because I'm recording in my car outside without the car running with no AC. So you don't have to hear that sound the whole time, which would be a pain in the ass. Something like that, you get some clothes. Cotton is a great godsend. Way better than a synthetic material in this humidity and this grossness. You soak it down, it stays wet for a long time, which is why it's bad in the winter. And it keeps you cool. So, cotton, it's one of those things also you can always tell the north by finding the moss on the tree. Here, the moss grows all around the tree. And if it is just on one side, it's generally not the north, it's random, it might be the south. Completely useless. Follow the North Star, probably going to fuck you up. And I have an episode, or at least articles about these survival myths worth checking out. Maybe I'll drop a show note. And drop a link in the show notes. 3 days without drinkable water. A way to carry water. A way to purify water. You may be surrounded by water, but you may be unable to drink it, or it may be undrinkable. One of the most surefire ways to make water safe to drink is by boiling it. If all you have is a plastic water bottle, you're fucked. Nah, mostly. You get way out there in like neat survival trickery. There is a way to boil water in a plastic water bottle. There's also ways to purify water in a plastic bottle through UV radiation by like leaving it on the roof of a house for like 12 hours. Knowing how to do these things could save your life. And you're thinking, man, I'm not surviving in the jungles, James. I'm just at home during the pandemic. I can't go out and my water's shut off. Well, knowing you could take plastic bottles of water to purify them, say you're out of your drinking water, but you still have plastic bottles laying around, and there's a creek behind your house. You can go get the water from the creek, put it on your roof, and let it boil that way. So, knowledge, my friends, and 3 weeks without food. Once again, I've definitely seen that the record for the longest time without food is like a month, which is a little bit longer than 3 weeks, but not a terrible lot longer. There technically was a guy that went a year without eating food. He started out morbidly obese, was under the control of a doctor, consumed water and vitamins and minerals a lot. Like he was on a strict supplement thing. He didn't consume any food, and he lost a ton of weight. That's an outliner. You're not going to do that in the wilderness. You're not going to do that in, your house during the apocalypse. Just saying. So that's the rule of threes. We're kind of going to break down how to get started prepping more or less on those. The categories we're going to go over are money, shelter, food, water, energy, security. So that's where you want to do your prepping at. Are there other categories? Skills, techniques, stuff like that? Yes. Gear? Yes. Not this episode. So we're going to start talking about money. That's, if you have money prepped, generally, depending on the point of the collapse or the type of disaster, all this other stuff you can get with the money. It's like if you're stuck in the jungle, what's the one tool you take? A knife. Because a knife is the one thing that you can make everything else to survive with, but is really hard to make. Whereas I've dropped you off in the woods, I'm like, hey, make a knife, you're fucked. It's hard to do with no tools to make the knife with. Drop you off with a knife and tell you to make cordage, probably can do it. Tell you to make shelter, probably can do it. At least if you've learned and practiced how to do it. So that's why we're going to start with money and work our way down from there. Not everything else is in super order, but I definitely felt that money needed to go first. And I do mean more than just treasury notes. I do mean more than just, bank money. I mean, other types of valuable money, monetary items. We'll talk about that. If you're starting this show and you have not a dime saved, maybe you have some 401k that you can't really touch. It's nebulous. You add money to it. You don't know about it. We're not talking about that. That's a diverse form of retirement. This is a diverse form of savings. I'm talking about something you can get your hands on more readily. This is like prepping 101. This is damn near intro to prepping 101. We start talking like prepper like 202 and whatever, advanced graduate school survival talkets. We'll start talking about diversifying your savings, like putting things in like a 3-month, 6-month, 1 year CD so that you get cash out at different times. We talk about different sort of forms of stock. Now we're just talking basically. I'm saying cash. You should have cash hidden somewhere accessible. I don't even really like keeping it in the bank. I'm telling you to get cash, save cash somewhere in the house. Hide it. Don't touch it. If you get hard up, you're like, man, I'm saving this money. Assess maybe if you save too much. But if you didn't save too much and you're just like, Maybe you spent too much. Maybe you had an unexpected thing come out and it's not really a big enough emergency that you need to dip into that emergency fund. You need to like side hustle. You need to go do a temp thing for a day. You need to work overtime. You need to sell something. Do not touch that money. You know, there is money hidden in your house, some amount, get started. Do not touch it. That's your prepping money. That's where you're starting at. Add to it, and by God, sacrifice everything in the universe to keep from touching that money unless it's a damned emergency. Don't think about it. Don't give in, you know. Day before payday and you really want a cheeseburger, it's not there. Don't touch it. You know, go do a side hustle. I'm playing around with a couple things. Maybe I'll let you know about them. It just sort of like, there are a million ways to make money if you're willing to go make money. My wife has been making a good amount of supplement income selling Aria's, my daughter's, baby clothes as soon as she don't fit them. Like, you know, most of the time, I don't know about everyone else's baby, but Aria has grown like a damn weed. Like, she is outgrowing clothes so fast now at 10 months old. Super outgrowing clothes. And Serenity got into like boutique, you know, online clothing and stuff when we got that stimulus check. She was like buying handmade fancy clothes off of Facebook groups and stuff. And now, as soon as she outgrows them, she's reselling them on Facebook for damn near what she paid for them. So it's almost like renting the clothes at this point, which, you know, has worked out pretty well. Like, she's lucratively been selling hundreds of dollars off of these used baby clothes, used bows and stuff like that. You know, I've been dipping my toe in the drop shipping world. If you're interested, go Google it. It's a rabbit hole in and of itself. But just, you know, one way I'm trying to make a little extra money besides just survival punk, which, you know, I make a little bit of money from, more if I would devote the amount of time that it deserves. But anyway, do not touch that money. That money doesn't exist. It's so, I almost don't want to recommend it. I can almost give you all the advice in like a couple of sentences, but Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, that original book, I recommend it. He's got some other ones that you can glean some good information from, but one of the things in that book, and you know, I didn't even learn it from the book. I learned it from the infomercial in like 1990 late night TV. Was one of the differences between his Rich Dad and Poor Dad, which apparently didn't exist. He made them up. It's a good allegory. Whatever, it works. His rich dad would pay himself first. You know, i.e., he would pay his investments. He would pay his business things. He would do that stuff first. Then he would pay his bills with what's left over after paying himself first. And by doing so, you know, if you pay yourself first and then you have to pay rent or a car note, you're going to struggle, you're going to side hustle, you're going to sell something, you're going to do something to make that payment. Whereas if you pay your bills first and you don't have the money left over to pay yourself, to invest in yourself, you're just not going to find that money. Whatever. But when it's a bill like that, when it's a life or death, got to pay the rent or I'm homeless, you'll fucking find that money. You'll sell shit you don't need. You'll go cut grass. You'll go pick up trash. You'll do something to find that money. But the desire to do that just isn't there when it's for yourself. Not for most people. So that's a technique. Pay yourself first. That's what we're doing with this. We're paying our savings first. We're paying our prepping money first, and then we're worrying about the other things second. I remembered to bring a drink this week, so I'm not out here dying of thirst in the heat. So money. You can sort of start looking at some small junk silver purchases at this time. It's starting to spike. I'm not going to tell you to put your money in gold. That's a big investment. And I'm just not. You know what? If you're listening to this and you have several thousands, if you have a huge discretionary income and you want to put some in gold, fine. I'm not going to tell you no, but I'm going to tell you no. I think it's too big of an investment, and it's fairly volatile. Technically, if you'd been investing in gold 20 years ago, you would have gotten a very good ROI. And it spiked up to about $5-6 grand. It spiked up pretty hard, then it fell down. The floor was like still 1,200. Like I watched it. I didn't really see it fall significantly below that. It could have, it could have dipped down below, but for the most part, over the long run, except for that spike, if you bought on the downside of the spike either way, your investment's still solid. Now it's starting to kind of go back up again. Silver's starting to go back up. I can't really tell you to go heavy into silver right now. Like last time I looked, it was up to like 20. I've bought most of my silver around like $11 an ounce. So telling people to go in at like 20, 30, like if you got some spare cash, maybe you want to dip your toe in it, find a local coin market, coin store, go and buy a 1 ounce coin. Probably going to spend about 25. Cause you might go in there going, well, spot price is $20 even. Well, they have to make money too. Don't buy anything based on numismatic value. So don't buy anything based on like, oh, this is a rare coin. You don't want that bullshit. You buy a coin as close to spot price as possible. I bought a lot of Walking Liberty 1 ounce silver pieces. I got some weird oddballs. I got some other like specialty silver, and a lot of the silver I bought was just in 1964 and earlier dimes. That's where a lot of my silver comes from. 1965, they stopped putting silver in the American coins. 1964 and earlier, they had silver. There's a cat somewhere out in my car meowing at me. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to dip your toe, maybe get a couple dimes. Yeah, sure. But I'm not going to tell you to invest heavily in that right now. If you put like 10% of your monetary saving in silver right now and the rest in just cash, I won't tell you no. I would not go higher than 10. Would go lower than 10. But if you tell me you want to do 10%, you're going to save $100 and you're going to put like $10 into silver, which would be a half an ounce or so, which would, probably be dimes. Yeah, sure. Go do that. I'm fine. So shelter. I'm not going to tell you to go buy a fancy shelter. Maintaining your house. Yeah. Trying to make your house bug out ready probably would be the best bet. Like, are you able to live in your house if the power was off? Heating, cooling, water, trying to make your house apocalypse ready. That's mostly what I'm talking about. You get some of these things and they're like, yeah, you go buy a high speed tent. You got to buy a hammock. I'm a hammock guy, by the way. Shelter. Like, what are you you're going to live in your tent, your shelter, your hammock? Like, what's your family going to do? You're all live in hammocks? Where at? Random woods? That's dumb. No. So I'm not going to dig deep into it. Make your house secure. make your house livable, make your house productive. Do you have a huge manicured Kim lawn, or do you have some edible foods there? Do you know the plants that live in your yard? Do you know that weird scraggly bush? Plantain? Not a bush, it's a plant. That weed, do you know what use it has? The dandelions that your Kim lawn people hate, do you know what good that is? Getting to know the plants in your yard, getting to know how to grow things, that's great stuff. Getting your house hardened. Maybe you have a good tax incentive to put on solar panels, and maybe you won't be able to pay them off for 10 years, but maybe the government collapses and you don't have to pay them off for 10 years. Who knows? Get a well dug if you can. Get rainwater systems put in. Doing those sorts of things. That's what I mean by shelter. God, if you get lucky and could get like a bug out location, even better. But for most of you, for gods, I hope you're not in the cities. Prep number 1, don't live in a city. I went with a tiny house in a rural area. That's what I did. Everybody else to your own, but not living in the city proper, that needs to be like number 1, get the fuck out of the city. And maybe, maybe I think about it, I can break this shelter thing out into a whole episode. How do you apocalypse ready your home? I like that idea. Somebody sent me a infographic for how to build a how to build a bomb shelter, survival shelter. I think I'm going to publish it. They asked me if I would. It's content. All I got to do is publish it and throw a few words up. And it looked interesting, so I think I'm going to do that. Food. This is a good topic. So all you have to do is get a couple things of beans and rice and you're good to go. Let's move on to the next category. Now, so if you're going to store food, you should probably store things that you like to eat. Shocker, I know. If you don't like something, there's not a huge reason to store it. It would be pointless. So, eat what you store what you eat. That's another survival phrase that's thrown around, and it makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't necessarily need to be things you eat every day, but it should be things you could eat every day, possibly. Whereas I have a lot of rice and beans stored. I could eat those every day. And during an apocalypse scenario, yeah, sure, I could do that. During apocalypse time, it will bloat me up and I'll get fat. Even at the fairly physical job that I have, it's not physical enough. Somehow, it's backbreaking, but somehow it's not physical enough. During the apocalypse, I could do rice and beans. Copy canning. So let's say that you like, what are we eating? Southern turnip greens. I can't remember. Glory Southern turnip greens. We're eating a good bit of those. They're not carby. They're fairly delicious. The whole family agrees we'll eat them. You don't have to do anything to them. They're in water. You just heat them up and eat them, and they're delicious. Normal turnip greens, I kind of got to add butter and salt and hot sauce and doctor them up. These ones, off the can, they're good. So I go to the store and I'm like, tomorrow I'm having pork chops and sweet potatoes and turnip greens. I need a can. Instead of buying that can of turnip greens, I buy 2 cans. Next week on some day, we're gonna have turnip greens tonight. Oh, we don't need to buy a can because we have a can. But no. We go to the store, we buy 2 more cans. We need a can, we buy that can plus another can. We take that home. We use that 1 can, we now have 2 cans in back storage. You do this, at the end of the month, if you do this once a week, you have 4 cans, you have 4 cans. That's 4 meals that you have already taken care of, that side item. You keep doing this for different things, and to be honest, you go to the store and you buy a $1.40 can of Glory turnip greens. You buy an extra can, you're out $3. I could probably pick up $3 and change off my floor, like not even worried about it. And that's on the higher end, like extra can of so I make mushy green peas, like the Brits. And that's, right now that's probably a weekly meal. Like we eat that. It's 50 cents a can. I usually buy 2 cans. So go to the store, buy 4 cans. An extra $1. Whoop-de-doo. Couple weeks, bam, I got a stockpile. 3 months go by, you do this, like pick one thing a month. Like, every week I know I'm going to eat the Glory or I'm going to eat the green peas, and then I buy that. And then next time, and don't revert to that savings. So this month I do that to Glory. Next month I do that to green peas. But when I go to the store for the green peas next month, even though I'm doing Glories at that time, I still buy the can that I need for that dinner. So I'm not touching the reserve cans. So that gives me a month, of that stored food at that point. If I eat 1 can a week and I have 4 cans, that's a month of that food stored. Then I move on to something else. It's a little slow, and maybe you can maybe you could do 2 things. So maybe I go to the store, I get 2 cans of Glory turnip greens and 4 cans, of green peas. And then I double at the end of the month, I have 2 items stockpiled, whatever you can afford, and it's small enough that you hardly notice at least doing one thing, and you can do a couple things depending on your budget. Another thing I like to do occasionally with that is just like take a $20 on payday and then just buy $20 of a single prep. You go buy $20 worth of cases of water and throw it out in the shed. You buy $20 worth of pasta, throw it in the shed, in a bucket or something. $20 worth of rice. And on payday, you don't notice it. As the week goes on, you're probably going to dick around with that money anyway and spend it on energy drinks and bullshit you probably don't need. Whatever. Freezing. Freezing is another good thing to do. At least if you have a high freezer capacity, it's easier to just throw shit in there. You find clearance meat, so find the time that your local places do their clearance meat. And I've noticed that the smaller mom and pop type stores generally always have a better deal on meat than the big box stores. Their markdowns are way lower, and they usually do them in the morning. So you go there first thing and open, you buy your meat, and you throw it in the freezer. Even though it says use by that date, if you freeze it by that date, it's fine. So freezing is another way. You may not, like, you find a good deal and you may not want it for dinner that night, but you may want it for dinner a month or 2 from now. So you freeze it. I find good deals on meat. I go throw them in my freezer. Canning would be the next step. And that's a bigger investment in both time and money. So we won't really go super long on it. There are canning things you can do. If you want to like dip your toes in canning and get into like water bath canning, which, forgive me if I'm wrong, is high acid foods, not low acid foods. Low acid foods require a pressure canner, i.e. meat. High acid foods, you can water bath can, which just basically means you need your jars and a big pot, and you just put boiling water in it, and you boil them in the jars in the pot. Things like jam and tomato sauces and stuff like that, you can do water bath canning. One of the things I'm going to do probably soon is can up some butter. As a warning, there is no FDA-approved method of canning butter. Lots of people do it. Your mileage may vary. I'm going to do it. May or may not break out the pressure canner. May or may not even water bath can it. There's a method to do it where you just hot pack them. You keep your jars in the oven at like 200 degrees to keep them sterile. You put in your not boiling, but damn near boiling butter, and you put the lids on it. And because the jars are hot and the butter's hot when it goes, and the lids are hot, then it cans itself. From what I've seen, I'm not giving you advice. It's not FDA approved, but you can get like 2 years out of that method. If you move to like a pressure canner, you can get about 5 years. So if you want to break out the pressure canner, there's that. I generally tend to think if there's a collapse, it will not be a long-term societal collapse unless, EMP hits, and then we're fucked. So there's that for food. We not going to go super deep. We're just you just get into it. I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to freak you out. Copy canning is where you need to start. That's your beginning. You just go to the store and you buy a little extra of what you're going to buy anyway. Water. If you or your kids or your family drink out of like 2 liters or like thick plastic tea jugs, rinse them out, fill them with water, throw them up in the basement or shed or something. Don't worry about putting in bleach. Don't worry about any of that bullshit. The water may not taste great, but it'll be fine for cooking and for cleaning and for drinking. It just may taste a little flat. Get you some like water squirt stuff and throw it in there if you need to. There's no reason to make like water preps something crazy and difficult. You don't need fancy water bricks. For make it easy, take $20 on payday, go buy yourself 4 or 5 cases of water, throw it in your basement. And don't touch it. Don't touch it. That's the beginning of your preps right there. Maybe another month or so, you go buy a couple more cases. If you keep doing that every few months, you'll probably be good on water. Learning the ratio of bleach to water to purify not tap water to purify unidentified source water, rainwater, creek water, not pool water. Pool water is going to require a lot more cleaning and sanitation than that. There is a ratio of bleach to water to purify your water to make it completely safe to drink. And I did not look it up, so I can't tell you, but I will find it in the show notes. Maybe I can find it real quick. Bleach to water purification. Two drops of regular Clorox bleach per quart of water. 8 drops of regular Clorox bleach per 2 gallons. 1/2 teaspoon regular per 5 gallons. We'll do it. Only use regular Clorox bleach. Do not use Fresh Scent or Lemon Fresh. And that comes from the Navy's website. 2 drops of regular bleach per quart. 8 drops of regular bleach per gallon. So getting a dropper, you can get these all over the place. And that's how you can purify your water. And it's fine to drink. It won't give it a great taste. Once again, having water flavoring powders and drops will help out with this. And there are a million other ways to purify water. And as you get more into the survival community, you will find these out. Iodine crystals, boiling. If you can boil water, it will almost always make the water safe to drink. If there are harmful chemicals and heavy metals in the water, boiling the water will not help with that. If anything, it will actually concentrate the chemicals and the heavy metals, and it will not be good. So if you think your water is chemically contaminated, like industrial chemicals, and not just like poop, feces, and shit like that, you're going to want to purify it a different way. You want to filter it out as well. Energy. We're not going to go super deep and or long on this. Oh, we're coming in at 44 minutes. Good. It's a good time for an episode. Energy. So in our modern world, energy is power. It's electricity. It's backup methods for that. I've got articles and podcasts on how to do that. There are a lot of little devices and stuff, solar things, stuff like that. My biggest recommendation is, instead of running out and buying a generator, unless you can afford it, is getting a good, say, 1,000 watt or so inverter for your car. You can do that. At that point, you can't use the inverters that plug into the cigarette lighter. There's just going to be too much juice going through. These inverters, you hook up to your battery and it powers that, and you can run extension cords from your car to your house, and you can power a few devices. Having like some way to store that power to then be able to turn your car off would be beneficial. Where if you're storing like battery banks, if you're storing like those cell phone charger blocks, powering some of those, so that you can plug in, charge your devices. This isn't going to be like a whole house powering device. That's too much. But just running a couple things off of your car, letting it run for a while and then turning it off. Your car's a better made generator than the cheap ones you're going to buy anyway. So you just get a good inverter and go with that. You start digging the survival community, you're going to see people talking about how to make fire, and that is a good skill to have, how to make a campfire. We will also talk about sort of, for off-grid cooking, for the power goes out, having a grill and some propane or charcoal, learning how to use it. There you go. That's better than trying to run your stove off of your car inverter. Too much shit. Grilled food tastes delicious anyway. So learn to grill, have a grill, have charcoal or propane that you can cook on the grill with. Lastly, and we are not going to go super deep on this, we have done episodes. We will do episodes. I plan on, for the most part, breaking a couple of these out and going deep dives into these over the next couple episodes. Unless you hate this series and then you're like, look, James, it's good to hear you back, but we want you to move on to something different. And I've heard that before. People, I really nerded out over a first aid episode a few years back, and people were like, okay, James, it's cool, but please move on. So I did. I did like a 3-part episode on home brewing once. I had a blast. It was fun to do some, and I may do something. I'm starting to tip my toes in non-alcoholic brewing. I've been alcohol free for like 6 years now. So anyway, the last one, security. There's a lot that comes with security. Now the new home security devices that go to your cell phone, like the Ring and whatnot, really, really looking at getting one of those. I think that's a great idea, great technology. But I'm sure you guys came here to hear me talk about guns. And by no means am I an expert. I didn't start shooting until I was an adult. Maybe in my 30s, maybe late 20s. Yeah, it was as an adult for sure. And I took some training and I took some classes and I did a lot of shooting. Need to get out to the range real soon. I'm getting itchy. I haven't went to the range since before Aria was born, so it's probably been a year. And I have a red dot on my AR that I want to test out that I got, and then I just never got a chance to really take it out. So I want to do that. So guns, you're talking home security, and I got a buddy that makes fun of people. He calls them the poors for buying cheap guns, and I get it. I've bought cheap guns, and I would not want to put my life in them. Like, I had a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber handgun. That was my first handgun I ever purchased. An S40 VE. Piece of shit. Horrible piece of shit, guys. It jammed more times than I care to remember. Completely unreliable. I'd hate to have to like rely on that for my safety of my life. I bought a Glock after that, Glock 19, from a police officer. So it was probably a duty pistol that he was getting rid of, or a former duty pistol, and never had a jam. Not once. And I'm not the best at cleaning firearms. Pretty bad at it. So if it could have jammed, it should have jammed, but it did not. Am I necessarily saying that your first gun needs to be a Glock 19? No. There are other handguns that are good. But if you're just trying to get into it, man, I almost want you to say, like, just everyone has a buddy that has guns. Like, unless you're like just a super liberal that you don't know. And if you are a liberal and you want to shoot guns, I can guarantee you a gun owner would love to take you. Like, I think I kicked around an idea a couple years ago, like, take a liberal to the gun range day, like national take a liberal to the gun range day. Just because once someone learns about guns and enjoys the fun of shooting guns, it's hard for them to be anti-gun. And there are a lot of new gun owners out there right now. So surely there's someone, if you ask around, that owns a firearm. And if you're like, hey, I'd like to go shoot, tell them you're willing to, bring your own ear protection and, a box or a couple boxes of ammo. They're going to say yes. It would probably prompt them to have an opportunity to get out to the gun range anyway, and teach you. Hopefully they're competent. Hopefully before they let you touch their firearm, they go over like the firearm basic safety rules. Never point the weapon at something you want to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you plan on shooting. The rules of firearm safety. If they do, then you can generally tell that they're a good firearms. They're going to be a good person to instruct you. They may not be a good firearms instructor, but they're gonna set you on your path, and to safely shoot firearms. Your first firearm probably shouldn't be, a handgun for home safety. Like, I highly recommend owning one, and I think they are good for home protection. And lots of people will debate on which one is better for home protection. Depends on your home, depends on your abilities, depends on a lot of things. I really think getting just a shotgun. Get a shotgun, learn to use it. The scope, the learning curve on using a shotgun effectively to defend yourself is a lot lower than a pistol. I learned to shoot effectively with a pistol, and it took a while. It took a lot of practice. I probably would suck at it now. But the first time I shot a shotgun, I hit what I shot at, from the distances that I could effectively shoot with a shotgun. You're getting hit by something. So, and you walk into any pawn shop, you can find a shotgun for probably under $200. Is it the best? Maybe not. But it's probably going to be decent. There's a lot of shotguns out there. And they've been around for a long time. People sell them all the time. That's, get a shotgun, learn to shoot it, move from there. You want to own a .22 rifle? Great. I really think you should. You want an AR-15? Awesome. I love AR-15s. And I think you should own a Glock 19. I've shot other handguns, but man, just the Glock makes a reliable weapon, and that's all I can say about them. They're not pretty. They're not necessarily super comfortable, especially if you have big hands, but they are reliable and they're accurate and they can save your life. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to wrap this up now. It's hot. I'm sweating, and I'm going to get inside to my wife and baby and get this show published as soon as possible. Hopefully in the next few minutes. With that, DIY, you better buy Glock 19, you guys.